Emma had always believed that marriage meant trust, even when trust felt heavy. For 6 years, she had built her life around Daniel. The man who once made her feel like the safest place in the world was beside him. He was charming, ambitious, and endlessly persuasive. Even when his small marketing company started showing signs of trouble over the past year, Emma stayed loyal. She believed in him because that was what wives were supposed to do, or at least that's what she had always told herself. The signs of stress had been there for months. Daniel came home later than usual, often distracted, glued to his phone, and carrying an exhaustion that made Emma worry. Dinner conversations became shorter. Weekend plans disappeared. The laughter that once filled their apartment slowly turned into silence, interrupted only by the sound of Daniel typing emails at midnight. Still, Emma ignored the unease growing inside her. One stormy Thursday evening, Daniel walked through the front door looking like a completely broken man. Rain soaked through his coat, his hair clung to his forehead. His shoulders were slumped as though the weight of the world had finally crushed him. "Emma," he said quietly. Something in his voice made her heart drop. She put down the dish towel in her hands and followed him into the kitchen. Daniel sat heavily at the table, rubbing both hands over his face before finally looking at her. "It's bad." Those 2 words were enough to make Emma's chest tighten. "What happened?" Daniel stared at the table for a long moment, as if forcing himself to say the words. "The company is done." Emma blinked. "Done. We're out of options," he said, his voice cracking at just the right places. "The investors backed out. Cash flow is gone. There's debt I can't cover anymore." Her legs nearly gave out beneath her. She pulled out a chair and sat down opposite him, trying to process what he was saying. Their company savings, their mortgage payments, their retirement plans, the vacations they had postponed for later, all of it suddenly felt like it was disappearing in front of her. "Are you saying bankrupt?" Daniel nodded grimly. Emma pressed a trembling hand to her lips. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Rain tapped steadily against the kitchen windows, filling the silence. Her mind raced with practical questions. How bad was it? How much debt? Could they save the house? Should they call a lawyer? But before Emma could ask anything, Daniel leaned forward. "There's something else." His expression hardened, becoming strangely focused. "Your parents cannot know." Emma frowned. "What?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Promise me you won't tell them." The request was so immediate, so forceful, that it startled her. "My parents are family," Emma said carefully. "If we're actually going through bankruptcy, why would I lie to them?" Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "You know exactly why." Emma stayed quiet. "Your father already thinks I'm not good enough for you," Daniel continued. "If he hears this, he'll never let me forget it. He'll treat me like some charity case." "That's not true." "Yes, it is." His tone was sharper now. Emma knew her father could be protective, but humiliating Daniel, that seemed unfair. Still, Daniel looked deeply wounded. He softened his voice. "Please, Emma. I can handle losing my company. I can handle starting over. But I can't handle your family looking at me like I failed as a husband." The words landed exactly where he intended them to. Emma's resistance weakened. "So what do I tell them?" Daniel visibly relaxed. "Tell them there's just a delay with a big client payment. Temporary cash issues, nothing major." Emma hesitated. Lying to her parents made her stomach twist. Her mother could read her emotions like an open book. Her brother Michael, a financial analyst, would definitely ask questions. But Daniel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I need you on my side." That sentence broke her. Not because it was romantic, but because it made her feel guilty for even questioning him. Of course she should be on his side. He was her husband. Later that night, as if summoned by bad timing itself, Emma's phone rang. "Mom?" Emma stared at the screen, her heartbeat quickening. Daniel glanced at her from the couch. "Answer it," he said. She swallowed hard and picked up. Her mother's warm voice filled the line. "Hi, sweetheart. You sound tired. Is everything okay?" Emma looked at Daniel. He watched her carefully. And for the first time in her life, Emma lied to the people who had never once lied to her. Yes, she whispered. Everything's fine. The lie didn't settle in Emma's chest. It lingered. It followed her into the next morning, sitting beside her as she drank her tea, staring back at her through her reflection in the kitchen window. She had expected guilt, but not this constant, gnawing discomfort, like something inside her was quietly warning her that she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Daniel, on the other hand, seemed fine, too fine. He woke up earlier than usual, shaved, dressed sharply, and even hummed under his breath while adjusting his watch. For a man who had declared bankruptcy less than 12 hours ago, he didn't look defeated. If anything, he looked focused, almost energized. "You're heading out?" Emma asked cautiously. "Yeah," he said, grabbing his keys. "Got a few meetings to clean things up." She nodded slowly. "Meetings about the bankruptcy?" Daniel paused just long enough to feel unnatural. "Something like that," he replied, then quickly leaned over and kissed her forehead. "Don't worry so much." The door closed behind him, leaving Emma standing alone with more questions than answers. Over the next few days, that uneasy feeling grew stronger. Daniel was rarely home, but when he was, he didn't behave like someone drowning in debt. He wasn't stressed about bills or discussing legal options. He didn't mention creditors calling or banks demanding repayments. Instead, he was constantly on his phone, stepping into other rooms to take calls, lowering his voice whenever Emma walked nearby. On the third day, Emma noticed something else. A shopping bag. It sat casually on the chair in their bedroom, as though it belonged there. She wouldn't have thought twice about it, except the logo on the bag belonged to a high-end designer store Daniel had always avoided because of the price. Her chest tightened. "Daniel," she called. He appeared in the doorway. "Yeah, what's this?" He glanced at the bag, then shrugged. "Client gift." Emma raised an eyebrow. "A client gave you designer shoes while your company is collapsing." His expression hardened for a brief second before smoothing over. "It's part of maintaining relationships," he said dismissively. "You wouldn't understand how this works." The words stung more than she expected. Emma didn't push further, but the answer didn't sit right with her. That night, she lay awake long after Daniel had fallen asleep. Her mind replayed every detail from the past few days, the expensive dinners he claimed were necessary, the new clothes, the calm demeanor. It didn't match the picture of bankruptcy. By the 6th day, her parents' suspicions began to surface. Her mother called again, her voice gentle but probing. "Emma, are you sure everything's all right? You sound different." Emma forced a light tone. "I told you, it's just a delay with one of Daniel's clients." There was a pause on the other end. Then her mother said quietly, "Your brother thinks something doesn't add up." Emma's grip tightened on the phone. "Michael, of course he would notice. He works in finance, sweetheart." Her mother continued. "He's asking questions." Emma swallowed. "There's nothing to worry about." But even as she said it, she didn't believe it anymore. Later that evening, Michael texted her directly. "Hey, can you send me the company name Daniel mentioned? I just want to check something." Emma stared at the message for a long time. Her instincts told her not to respond, not because she didn't trust her brother, but because she was starting to realize she might not trust her husband. She set the phone aside without replying. Day 8 brought the moment everything shifted. Daniel was in the shower when his phone buzzed on the bedside table. Emma wasn't the type to snoop. She never had been, but something compelled her this time. The screen lit up again. A bank notification. Her eyes caught the number before she could stop herself. A deposit, a large one. Her breath caught in her throat. That wasn't what bankruptcy looked like. Her hand hovered over the phone, hesitation battling with instinct. Finally, she picked it up. The notification disappeared, but the damage was done. Her heart began to race. If money was coming in, not going out, then Daniel hadn't just exaggerated their situation, he had lied. Emma slowly placed the phone back exactly where it had been, her mind spinning faster with every second. When Daniel walked out of the bathroom moments later, towel draped over his shoulders. She forced herself to act normal. But something inside her had shifted. The trust she once gave so freely was no longer there, and in its place, something far more dangerous had begun to grow. Doubt. By the 9th day, Emma had stopped sleeping properly. Every sound in the apartment seemed louder. Daniel's footsteps, the vibration of his phone against the counter, the quiet click of his laptop shutting whenever she walked into the room. She felt like a stranger in her own home. The man she had once trusted with every part of her life now felt like someone she was studying from a distance, trying to decode. Daniel noticed her growing silence. "You've been weird lately," he said one evening while loosening his tie. Emma forced a smile, just tired. He narrowed his eyes, studying her face as if checking whether she believed her own lie. "Well," he said after a moment, "try not to stress yourself out." The irony nearly made her laugh. Instead, she nodded and walked into the kitchen before her expression betrayed her. That night, once Daniel had gone to sleep, Emma quietly opened her laptop. She knew almost nothing about business finance, but she knew enough to start looking. For years, she and Daniel had shared access to certain household accounts. Over time, Daniel had gradually taken over most financial management, always presenting it as helpful. "Less stress for you," he used to say. At the time, Emma had appreciated it. Now it looked less like care and more like strategy. She logged into one of their joint accounts. The balance was lower than expected, not devastatingly low, just wrong. Scrolling through transactions, Emma noticed several recurring transfers labeled with vague descriptions: consulting fees, operational expenses, vendor adjustments. At first glance, nothing unusual, but the amounts were huge. Her stomach twisted. She clicked deeper. Some transfers were directed toward an unfamiliar account, ending in numbers she didn't recognize. Her pulse quickened. Then she found it, a payment record linked to a property management company, not their landlord, not their mortgage provider. A completely different company. Emma copied the name into a search engine. Seconds later, a luxury apartment listing website appeared. Her mouth went dry. She clicked through. The company managed upscale rental properties in another city nearly 4 hours away. Emma stared at the screen, as if it might rearrange itself into a more reasonable explanation. It didn't. Her hands began trembling. Why would Daniel be paying for an apartment in another city? A cold, ugly possibility entered her mind. No, she immediately rejected it. Daniel could be planning something business related, maybe temporary housing, maybe office expansion, but deep down she knew she was making excuses again. Her phone buzzed suddenly, nearly making her jump. A message from her father: "Family dinner tomorrow, 7 p.m. Don't be late, bring Daniel." Emma frowned. Her father wasn't usually formal over text. Something about the message felt deliberate. The next morning, she called her mother. "Dinner?" Emma asked. Her mother sounded unusually cheerful. "Yes, sweetheart. We haven't all been together in a while." Emma wasn't convinced. "Still," she agreed. When she told Daniel later, his reaction was immediate. "Tomorrow, yes," he sighed. "I'm busy." Emma studied him carefully. "Dad specifically asked for you." A flicker of tension crossed Daniel's face. "Well," he muttered, "guess I can't say no." The following evening, the drive to her parents' house felt suffocating. Daniel kept one hand on the steering wheel, the other tapping impatiently against his leg. "You're quiet," he said. "So are you." He gave her a sideways glance. "Should I be worried?" The question landed strangely. Emma forced a neutral expression. "About dinner. About your family." Before she could answer, they pulled into the driveway. The house looked normal from the outside, warm lights glowing, familiar curtains drawn. Her mother's flower pots still lined neatly on the porch. But the moment Emma stepped inside, she knew something was different. No comforting smell of dinner. No background music, no casual warmth. Instead, the atmosphere felt tense, focused. Her brother Michael was already seated at the dining table, a thick folder resting in front of him. Her father stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. Her mother gave Emma a soft, reassuring look that somehow made Emma even more nervous. Daniel slowed beside her. "What is this?" he asked. No one answered immediately. Her father gestured toward the table. "Sit down." Emma's heartbeat thundered. Daniel gave a short laugh. "What's going on?" Michael slid the folder forward. "We know you're not bankrupt." Silence crashed into the room. Emma turned toward Daniel so quickly, her chair nearly scraped backward. His face had completely drained of color, and in that moment, before anyone said another word, Emma knew. Her family hadn't invited them to dinner. They had invited them to an exposure. The silence after Michael's words felt endless. Daniel stared at the folder like it contained a weapon, not paper. His jaw tightened, then loosened, then tightened again. Emma had seen him talk his way out of uncomfortable situations dozens of times before, with charm, confidence, and just enough wounded pride to make people guess themselves. But not tonight, not here, not with evidence sitting inches away from him. "This is ridiculous," Daniel finally said, forcing out a laugh that sounded brittle and unnatural. "You went through my finances. Our daughter was manipulated into lying to us." Emma's father replied coldly, "You made this family part of your scheme." Scheme. The word landed like a final confirmation. Emma looked at Daniel, waiting some irrational part of her still desperate for an explanation that would make all of this less ugly. Instead, Daniel turned toward her. "Emma, don't let them twist this." Her stomach turned. "Twist this." Michael opened the folder and calmly slid several printed documents across the table. "Transfers from shared marital accounts into a private account opened 8 months ago," he said. "Monthly payments toward a luxury rental property, and several asset reallocations that were intentionally hidden." Emma stared down at the paperwork. Every page made her feel dumber for how much trust she had handed over. "You were moving money," she said quietly. Daniel leaned back in his chair, exhaling hard. "It's not what you think." That sentence, so tired, so predictable, nearly made Emma laugh. "Then what is it?" she asked. No one interrupted her. For the first time all evening, the room belonged to Emma. Daniel rubbed his forehead. "I was protecting myself." "From what?" Emma asked, her voice sharper now. "Your wife. You wouldn't understand how messy business gets." Michael cut in. "Interesting, because from where I'm sitting, this doesn't look like business protection. It looks like preparation." Emma slowly turned to her brother. Preparation for what? Michael hesitated only briefly. Divorce. The word knocked the air from Emma's lungs. Her mother immediately reached for her hand, but Emma barely felt it. Divorce, not bankruptcy, not financial collapse, not a husband in crisis, a husband planning his exit. Her entire body went cold as realization connected every missing piece. The fake bankruptcy story, the insistence on lying to her parents, the hidden accounts, the apartment. He hadn't been trying to protect his pride. He had been building a narrative. A story where he looked financially ruined, vulnerable, and entitled to sympathy, so that when he left, Emma would assume there was simply nothing left to fight over. No assets, no savings, no future worth claiming. Daniel had wanted her to walk away empty-handed, and she almost would have. Emma let out a slow breath, not shaky, not broken, just clear. "You used me," she said. Daniel's face hardened. "I did what I had to do." There it was, no apology, no remorse, just calculation. Something inside Emma finally snapped into place, not dramatically, but cleanly, like a lock turning. She stood up. Daniel looked startled. "Emma, no." Her voice was calm enough to silence him instantly. For days, Emma had imagined confrontation differently. Tears, shouting, demands for explanations. Instead, she felt strangely light. Like she had been carrying something heavy without realizing how much it weighed. She turned to her father. "Can you recommend your attorney?" Daniel shot upright. "Are you serious?" Emma looked at him with a level of indifference that clearly unsettled him more than anger ever could. "Very. Emma, don't be irrational." A tiny smile touched her lips. "Irrational," she repeated. "That's rich." Her brother closed the folder. "You should probably get your own lawyer," Michael said to Daniel, almost conversationally. Her father opened the front door. A gesture so simple and devastating it barely needed words. Daniel looked around the room as though searching for an ally. He found none. "Fine," he snapped, grabbing his coat. "You're all making a mistake." Emma almost pitied him. Almost, as Daniel stormed out into the cold night, the door shut behind him with a satisfying finality. No dramatic music, no screaming, just an ending. Emma sat back down slowly, suddenly exhausted. Her mother wrapped both arms around her shoulders. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Emma leaned into her embrace. For a moment, grief threatened to rise, not grief for Daniel, but for the version of her life she thought she had. Still, beneath the sadness was something stronger. Relief 11 days ago, Emma had lied to protect her marriage. Tonight, her family had revealed the truth and saved her from losing far more than money. They had saved her from staying loyal to someone who saw loyalty as a weakness, and this time Emma wouldn't be the one left with nothing.